everyone, Adventure here, welcome to the channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the something I like to call OG Battleship. And of course, as you can see from and read from in the title, this is Graf Spee. And yeah, the first question would be, okay, Adventure, shouldn't the OG Battleship would be something like HMS Dreadnought, HMS Colossus, Westfalen, or something that was added in the update where they have added battleships? And I'm gonna say no, because this is the OG battleship, or at least OG something that could be said is battleship-like, because if not battleship, why battleship shape? Here's a fun story for those of you who don't know, for those of you who weren't there at the very beginning when Naval was announced. It was in the closed beta test. The simpler times where there wasn't two trees, no coastal, no blue water tree, there was one big tree that ended up in 5.7/6.0 cruisers, heavy cruisers, light cruisers, that depended on the tree. But there were no battleships. But there was Graf Spee. This was something that could make you feel like you're playing a battleship in a game without battleships. And yes, you might think that this is cringe, that I could be just making a video about the dreadnoughts and how they perform in the game right now. And yeah, maybe one day, of course. But when it comes to the feeling of being a battleship, this is a bit of a throwback to the simpler times of the first introduction of Naval, when Gaijin explicitly said there was gonna be no battleships in this game. We are not going to add battleships, the maps will be catered to cruisers at best, the gameplay will be catered to cruisers at best, and well, look at where we are now. We have a lot more battleships that Gaijin said there will be. At least by one. But yeah. As the proud owner of Graf Spee, I can safely say that this is one of the funniest ship that I've been playing, simply because of the 283mm guns. And these guns were the ones that would make you feel like you're playing a battleship. Those were the biggest guns in the game, those were the hardest hitting guns in the game at one point, and they still are, because those are one of the few guns that are reliably used to fight against battleships, even until this point. Maybe not as much as it was before, because currently we have things like Kronstadt, we have still Scharnhorst. It serves as a very good first impression ship. You will learn how to play a battleship, you will learn how to use the slower reloading guns, the more hard-hitting guns, and this is all what I look for. When it comes to the history of this ship, there's not a lot of history, so I can't tell you a lot, because come on, those of you who know, and those of you who don't know, here's a quick history lesson with Adventure. There was a ship, it was used few times, like 2 or 3 times, and then it met its demise against the overwhelming forces of an enemy. It's not like Spee used to fight in famous battles. No, when it comes to Spee, she was basically a merchant rider, and from that merchant rider that met her demise in Uruguay in the Battle of the Rio de la Plata. So yeah, there you go. She sank a few merchant ships, and if I remember correctly, maybe 1 or 2 escort cruisers, not escort cruisers, but destroyers, etc. And then interned in Montevideo, in Uruguay. The Allied forces were just waiting, and with that, the Allied forces sank her really easily, because she couldn't be repaired in the port, and then once she took out to the sea, she just well, simply met her demise, and the crew was interned. When it comes to the whole Deutschland class, I would say Deutschland had more spectacular history. Let's talk about the history, because, like I said, the history could be summed up in 2 sentences. She was made, she killed a few cruisers and died near the shores of Uruguay. Not exactly something you can read a lot and long stories. So we're gonna keep talking a little bit more about what she is in the game. And in the game she is still quite spectacular. Like I mentioned before, she is quite frankly your first, and could be your first experience with how you should play a battleship, and with how you can play a battleship, what to expect, and what to expect from the gameplay, what to expect from the players, etc. Should you treat it as a typical battleship experience? I would say yes. On paper, Spee is very powerful, and in reality, she is very powerful. Although you do have this few drawbacks that you can't really counterweigh. That is things like your quite thin armor, because you have only 100mm of the armored belt. Okay, we're not gonna talk about the armor. Armor is crap. You are gonna focus on your guns. And oh boy, those guns slap. As a heavy cruiser, if you can call her like that, Spee was one of the few that was not designed as a ship to counter other similar ships. I really like to bring up the example of Iowa and Congo. Congo was designed because Japan needed a fast, hard-hitting battlecruiser, later redesigned and reclassified as a fast battleship, a proper fast battleship. So the US, as they didn't have anything other than a standard battleships, they decided, okay, we're gonna be doing design, and that's how Iowa class came to be. A counterpoint for an existing class. And you can't say that about Spee. Spee as a class, a whole Deutschland class, and Spee as the example, was designed not to counter ships like, I don't know, Baltimore, not ships like Hawkins, York. She was meant to face ships like merchant ships or maybe destroyers. And this sentiment definitely carries over in the game. Mainly because... yes. Oh shit, I messed up my... Oh, well, I messed up my ammunition. No matter, it will be a nice showcase of what can you do with that. Because yes, as you might have noticed, you can and you definitely are able to fight things like battleships. Maybe not Scharnhorst, that would be a little bit of a stretch. Where you excel, especially, is when you take this very good shell of an HE. But take a look at that. 300 kilogram of mass, 23.3 explosive mass of TNT. For softer targets, because you have 65mm of pen, for softer targets like lightly armored cruisers, like destroyers, maybe with the exception of K2, because I think K2 cannot be penetrated with those. You are ripping them to shreds. And I'm gonna showcase that for you on this little Omaha class. Take aim, slow down a little, aim for the front, and send it. Can I even take a closer look like that, so it's not only an X-ray? So yeah, 11% of the crew, Definitely did not hit the weak spot, but definitely did a lot of damage. If you aren't able to deal enough damage with the HE, which you probably will have this little fun time of not being in an up tier to 6.7. You definitely can and should bring stuff like SAP shell with 281mm of pen. Okay, which I see is almost coinciding with the caliber of the gun. It's like they designed it to be like that. You have the possibility, and you should get that possibility of be the guy that she told not to worry about. Because yes, size does matter in naval, and you definitely bring a lot of size compared to all of your other cruisers. Be the guy she tells you not to worry about, and be the guy that brings your team to victory, or at least be the top scoring guy in a down tier. Only for really heavily armored stuff you bring AP. For everything else, SAP works if you are more confident with your AP shells and aiming for these sweet spots of the magazines. Then bring those. This is a ship where every shell works, and this is a ship where you can confidently say every shell will work without worrying that you are sacrificing something. Even with simple... Okay, why smoking here? Even with simple HE, you are delivering enough damage for pretty much everyone to respect your choice of a ship and to be reckoned with. See, that one salvo, I assume, brought enough of the unrepairable breach so that the damage control parties were not able to deal with. Finishing my thought, definitely whether that be your 150mm guns as your secondaries, or whether that would be your 283mm main guns, which are basically slower guns of Scharnhorst, so it's a very nice showcase of what to come when you finally unlock Scharnhorst. You are armed to the teeth. Sadly, your teeth are very brittle, and you aren't able to... you aren't able to take that much of a beating. The overall experience with Spee is definitely an experience that I've had with most of the battle cruisers. And this is not a bad experience whatsoever. You cannot tell me that Spee isn't a good ship. Sometimes unfairly matched? Yes. At higher tiers, I would recommend staying far back. Instead of going for, I don't know, the close quarter combats, which, okay, you have 30 seconds of a reload, you definitely are not winning that against Helena, against the Brooklyn class, or, well, at least against everything, because pretty much everyone has faster fire rate than you, with the exception of US heavy cruisers, but we don't talk about US heavy cruisers, so just use your range to advantage. You are spawning at a quite big of a range, so you definitely can use that to render the enemy shells useless, but your shells will still have enough momentum, enough of the penetrating power to be a demise to all of your enemies in the match. Simple like that. But yeah, that would be Graf Spee. A ship famous for not having a famous history, but being really, really unproportionally blue when it comes to the media. Definitely a fun ship to play. Definitely worth grinding. That would be it. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a like, consider subscribing. This helps the channel really, really. And I appreciate all of you who comment, who leave a like, who subscribe. And I appreciate even you, because you might not hear that much, but I appreciate everyone who clicked on this video, who decided to watch more of it and to decide to enjoy my rambling. And if you didn't and decided to press the dislike button, then at least I know I have to work on something, and that is something I can take as a nice lesson. But yeah, I hope we have a beautiful day, night, evening, or an afternoon, wherever you are. This is Aventer, out. See you in the next video. Bye bye.